Hey everybody, today we're going to be doing the normal distribution problem set, and I'm going to be looking at number 1. So it tells me that a normally distributed data set of 200 values has a mean of 68 and a standard deviation of 6. So what I'm going to do to get the normal distribution is I'm going to go to Desmos. Now here at Desmos, click into box 1 and then open up the keypad at the bottom of the screen. Once you open up the keypad, you can go all the way to the right to where it says functions. And if you click on that, you'll have 4 options. We're going to click on DIST, which stands for distributions. And under distributions, you'll see normal dist. We're going to click on that. So now I'm going to hide the keypad. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the zoom fit button at the bottom of the box. So that way I can see the normal distribution. Now, the two numbers that we're going to put into the normal distribution are going to be the mean, which is the average, and the standard deviation. In the question, it tells us that our mean is going to be 68 and our standard deviation is going to be 6. So I'm going to type in 68, 6. And then once again, I'm going to hit the zoom fit button at the bottom. So now I can see my normal distribution. We call this the bell curve because it's shaped like a bell. What I want to do is I want to check the box that says find CDF. And once I click that box, the whole area under the curve will be shaded. So now I have a minimum and a maximum. What I'm going to do is I'm going to follow question A. Question A says, what percentage of the values is between 61 and 75? Since we're going between 61 and 75, that means that the minimum is going to be a 61 and the maximum is going to be a 75. So for my minimum, I'm going to type in 61, and for my maximum, I'm going to type in 75. Now check out how much area below the curve is shaded. That is going to correspond to the decimal at the bottom of the box, 0.75665. What we're going to do is we're going to round that 6 up to a 7 because the 5 tells the 6 to go up to a 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the decimal 0.7567. And since we want to write our answer as a percentage, what we're going to do is we're going to move the decimal point to the right twice. So I get 75.67% of all the area under the curve. So that's how this is done. You're always going to have a minimum and you're always going to have a maximum. Let's look at question B. Question B says, what percentage of the values is less than 70? So since we have to go less than 70, that means our maximum is going to be 70 and we don't have a minimum. So I'm going to get rid of the minimum. And then notice, once I get rid of the minimum, it's automatically replaced with a negative infinity. And then the decimal it gives me at the bottom of the box is going to be 0.63055. And that second 5 is going to tell that first 5 to go up to 6. So I'm going to get 0.6306. And to write my answer as a percentage, it's going to be 63.06% of all the data, or all the area under the curve. So the area that is shaded under the curve is going to be 63.06% of all the area. And the remaining is going to be unshaded. Okay, let's look at the next question. C, what percentage of the values is greater than 75? So we need to find the percentage of values that are greater than 75. So we're going to start at 74 and we're going to go to the right. That means my minimum is going to be 74. And I don't have a maximum since we're going greater than 74. So once I get rid of that maximum number, it's replaced automatically with a positive infinity. And it's going to give me the decimal 0.1587 if I round up that 6 to a 7. And then I have to move the decimal point to the right twice to get my percentage. And that's going to be 15.87% of all the data. Okay. Now, for the last 3 questions, what they're asking you is how many values. And when they have a how many values question, you always have to multiply by the number of values at the end. And the number of values is 200. So question D says, how many values fall between 63 and 71? 63 and 71, that means that our minimum is going to be 63 and our maximum is going to be 71. So going back here, I'm going to have 63 for my minimum and then 71 for my maximum. And I get the decimal 0.4891. So 0.4891. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by the number of values I have. How many values do I have? Well, going back to the question, I noticed that the first paragraph says I have 200 values. So I need to multiply that decimal by 200. So I'm going to type in 200, and then my answer is at the bottom of the box, which is 97.82. And we're going to round that up to the nearest whole number, which is 98. Okay. So now let's look at the next question. It says, how many values are less than 65? Since we're going less than 65, that means 65 is going to be the maximum. So I'm going to write down 65 for the maximum. And then the minimum I'm going to get rid of because we're going less than 65. So there is no minimum. So the minimum is going to automatically be negative infinity. And the decimal that I get is 0.3085. 0.3085. And that 3 is going to tell that 5 to stay still. At the end, we're going to multiply by 200, and I get 61.7. 61.7. If I was to round that to the nearest whole number, I would round that 1 up to a 2, so I get 62 for my final answer. Okay. And then F says, how many values are greater than 66? Since we're going greater than 66, 66 is going to be our minimum, and our maximum is going to be positive infinity. So I'm going to leave that blank. And then I get the decimal 0.6306 if I round that 5 up. So 0.6306. And then I have to multiply by 200 at the very end, and I get my number of values, 126.12, which is 126 if I round down. Okay, the last question says, find the z-score for x equals 76. So I'm going to type in 76 inside parentheses. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to subtract the average. Well, what's the average? It's going to be 68, right? My mean. So I'm going to subtract 68 and then close up the parentheses. And then at the very end, I'm going to divide by the standard deviation. The standard deviation is 6 right here. That's the standard deviation. So I'm going to divide by 6 and I get 1.3 repeating, which is actually 4/3. So what is 76 minus 68? That's actually going to be 8. And then since we're still dividing by 6, we get 8 over 6 as a fraction. But if we were to reduce that down to lowest terms, we could divide the top and bottom by 2 to get 4/3. So 4/3 is going to be my answer.